Stop what you are doing, because what is about to be said is not for everyone, it is for you. You have been carrying a question that no room around you has been able to answer, and the silence has not been empty. It has been charged. There is a reason the door has felt closed, and there is a reason your heart keeps returning to the same quiet place when everything else gets loud. In these words, you will recognize the signal that has been pressing against your ordinary day, the pattern that has been standing behind your restlessness, the hidden pressure that has made some conversations feel too shallow to live in, and the way a private obedience can begin long before anyone else sees it. You will also hear why the title you receive does not sound like a public announcement, but like a summons to inward honesty. So stay with this, because the first thing that changes is not the room around you, it is the way you hear the room. You know how a house can look the same in the morning and still feel different before noon. The cup on the table is in the same place, the phone is still lit on the counter, the fan is still turning above you, but your chest has already taken a step back from the noise. You feel it in the shoulders first, then in the shallow breath, then in the part of you that stops pretending the day is ordinary. Maybe you sat on the edge of the bed and stared at nothing long enough to realize that something inside you was refusing the old rhythm. Maybe you stood in the kitchen while the kettle hissed and thought, I cannot keep living like this. That thought does not always arrive as drama. Often it arrives as a quiet refusal. And when it comes, it exposes how much of your life has been spent answering demands instead of listening for truth. The pressure is not only outside you, it has been sitting in the body, waiting to be named. And the naming is already a mercy. What is happening is not random, and it is not the failure you feared when the answer did not come quickly. It is a signal, and it has more to do with formation than with delay. You are being shown where your attention has been leaking, where your peace has been traded, where your inner life has been too crowded to hear what matters. By the end of this, you will recognize attention. You need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment. Recognize the exact signs that have been following you through ordinary places, the root pattern that has kept trying to dress itself as wisdom, the reason your silence has felt heavier than it used to, and the practice that returns you to a cleaner center. You will also hear the difference between a closed door that protects you and a closed door that simply teaches you to wait without panic. Not every pause is punishment. Some pauses are hands over fire. Some pauses are the mercy of being kept from what your own hunger would have rushed into too soon. That is the shape of this message. It is not about abandoning the room. It is about hearing who is speaking in it. You have felt this most in the small places where nobody else notices. It happens when you reach for your phone before prayer and then set it down again because the screen feels louder than your own thoughts. It happens when you sit in the car after work, hands still on the steering wheel, while the windshield reflects a face you barely recognize. The air moves through the vents, the seat presses against your back, and still the deeper fatigue is not physical. It is the fatigue of being everywhere, except where your heart is. You may be smiling at people and still feeling a private weariness beneath the smile. You may be doing what is expected and still sensing that your soul is not agreeing with the performance. This is where the whisper begins to matter. The silence is not empty, it is containing something. The closed door is not only blocking you, it is isolating the real question from the noise that would cheapen it. And because of that, this moment asks for honesty rather than speed. If you keep living as if nothing has shifted, you will keep paying for what you cannot name. You are not too sensitive. You are being trained to notice what others miss. That difference can feel lonely before it feels useful, because discernment does not always arrive with applause. It arrives with discomfort, with the strange sense that a familiar room no longer fits your spirit the same way. In the chair by the window, with daylight falling on the floorboards and the small dust moving in the air, you can feel how your body begins to pull back from what once held it without question. Your breathing changes when something true is near. Your hands become quieter. Your mind stops entertaining certain excuses. This is not fragility. It is a form of sight, and that sight can be costly when it exposes how long you have called compromise by a softer name. The old story says you are overthinking. The truer story says you are being made alert. There is a difference. One drains you, the other protects you, and once you know the difference, you cannot unhear it. The first opposition is rarely dramatic. It usually arrives wearing routine. It fills your day with lesser urgencies so that the one thing that matters keeps being postponed. It teaches you to confuse motion with obedience. It keeps your schedule loud enough that your conscience has to speak twice. In the hallway, in the grocery line, in the messages you answer too quickly, it works like a slow fog. It does not always forbid you. It simply distracts you until your inner life becomes thin. You feel this when you keep saying later to what should have been faced now. You feel it when comparison sneaks into your chest and convinces you that everyone else has already moved further ahead. And yet, the presence of this opposition is also a clue. Only what matters is resisted that strongly. Only what is being guarded draws that much interference. So when the pressure rises, do not call it proof that you are lost. Call it proof that something in you is worth contesting. That is the part the old atmosphere does not want you to see. It is not just blocking you, it is trying to keep you from noticing that you are already changing. There is a biblical echo here, and it is not distant from your life. It is the feel of being called while still surrounded by ordinary work, like someone hearing their name in the middle of a room full of other sounds and realizing the voice was meant for them alone. You know that kind of moment. It can happen while washing dishes, while folding clothes, while staring at a text that you do not know how to answer, while sitting through a family conversation that feels too small for what is stirring inside you. The echo is simple. When the voice comes, the old pattern cannot keep pretending it has the final word. You are not being asked to perform certainty. You are being asked to recognize that the call has already entered the room. And that recognition matters because it changes the weight of the next decision. You stop treating your restlessness as a nuisance and start treating it as a messenger. You stop asking only whether you can survive the change and begin asking whether you can hear it. This is how quiet callings work. They do not arrive with fireworks. They arrive with a sentence that will not leave you alone. If you ignore that sentence, the cost is rarely instant, but it is real. The same cycle returns with a little more heaviness each time, like a door that keeps swelling in the frame because no one has touched it at the hinges. Peace begins to thin out. Sleep becomes lighter, not because you are busy, but because your inner life is unfinished. A room that once gave rest now feels crowded with unfinished obedience. You start making peace with noise because noise is easier to manage than truth. And slowly, if nothing changes, The heart can become skilled at surviving what it was never meant to normalize. That is why this message does not flatter your delay. It names it. Not to shame you, but to rescue you from the habit of calling delay wisdom when it is only fear dressed well. The warning is gentle, but it is real. Your soul remembers what your schedule tries to forget, and what you do with the signal will either deepen your clarity or extend your confusion. The choice is not dramatic, it is private. Yet private choices write public futures. If even one of these signs has landed inside you, then pause with me for a moment. If your shoulders dropped while you listened, if you felt that quiet recognition in your chest, type the number 888 in the comments. It is not magic. It is a simple sign of overflow, a way of saying that what was hidden in you is now being noticed. Your fingers writing those words are your spirit agreeing with the moment before your mind finishes explaining it. Type 888, then come back to me. There is no need to rush past the meaning once it has touched you. Let it settle. Let it stand where it landed. What matters now is not performance, it is recognition, and recognition is the first door inside the closed hallway. The next part goes deeper because the signal is only the beginning of what has been waiting to be seen. What has been underneath this the whole time is not simply the closed door itself, but your relationship to it. The real conflict is not only outside you, because the outer silence has been waking up an inner habit that wants control. You have tried to manage the mystery by predicting it, naming it too soon, or forcing a door before your hand was steady enough to hold the handle. In the quiet of your room, with the lamp on low and the curtains still half open, you can feel how quickly the mind wants to explain what the spirit is only beginning to reveal. That is where the struggle turns personal. Not every pause is a denial. Not every delay is abandonment, but the old survival pattern keeps telling you that if you do not force an answer, you will lose your place. That is not truth. It is anxiety in a clean shirt, and it has been speaking in your language for a long time. The deeper layer is this. You are not being punished for waiting. You are being invited to stop living as if force is the same thing as faith. That is a hard sentence, but it is a merciful one. The root is often fear of obeying, even when the heart pretends it is fear of failing. You know the shape of that fear because it appears when clarity arrives and your first instinct is to negotiate with it. It sits beside you at night, in the dim room where the blue light from the phone brushes your hands, and it whispers that you can decide later, that you need more proof, that now is not the right time. But the body has already begun to tell another story. The chest tightens before the excuses are finished. The jaw hardens. The breath shortens. Something inside you knows that postponing obedience is not neutral. It is costly. This is why the message keeps returning. It is not returning to accuse you. It is returning to reveal the place where fear has been posing as caution. There are moments when you call yourself careful, but what you are actually doing is protecting a familiar identity from change. The revelation is not that you are weak. The revelation is that you have been trying to stay in control of what was meant to be received, and control always asks for more than it gives. You can feel the war between mind, body, and spirit in ordinary moments. The mind says there is no evidence. The body keeps reacting as if evidence is everywhere, and the spirit recognizes what cannot yet be proven with language. You are not imagining the split when you sit at the edge of the bed and stare at the wall after a conversation that should have been simple. Your body knows when something is off before your words do. Your breath changes when a room is carrying more than it says. Your thoughts become circular when a decision has already been answered in a place deeper than argument. The old habit is to call all of this confusion. But confusion is not the only explanation. Sometimes it is discernment looking for a cleaner voice. Sometimes it is the soul refusing to agree with the mind's rush to settle. And that tension can feel exhausting until you understand that not all unrest is chaos. Some unrest is the sound of truth pressing against an old frame. When you learn that, you stop trying to silence every discomfort and begin asking what it is trying to guard. Some places do not resist because they hate you. They resist because they know the version of you that used to fit there. That is why certain conversations feel heavy now, why some rooms seem to drain your energy faster than they used to, why a few familiar people can leave you feeling smaller after you leave. The point is not suspicion. The point is discernment. You do not need to condemn everyone around you to recognize that not every environment can carry the same version of your becoming. In the kitchen, with dishes stacked in the sink and a voice from another room speaking too quickly, you can sense when the atmosphere is pressing you back into an older role. That older role was useful once. It helped you survive. But survival is not the same thing as calling. There comes a point when the room no longer deserves your old obedience. That moment feels almost rude at first, because it asks you to stop performing access for people and places that have not earned the deepest parts of you. And yet that is where peace begins to return. There is a strategy in the opposition, and it is built on fatigue. It tires you by making every step feel more urgent than the last. It delays you by convincing you that clarity must be immediate or it is useless. It confuses you by making lesser responsibilities look like destiny. It keeps you answering noise while the real invitation waits untouched. You feel this in the way your day fragments around tiny demands, in the way one message leads to 10 minutes of distraction, in the way your attention keeps being pulled away from what matters most. The enemy of your peace does not always attack with fear first. Sometimes it attacks with clutter. Sometimes it attacks with good-looking busyness. Sometimes it attacks by making you forget that not every open door is meant for you, and not every silence is a no. When that strategy is exposed, it loses some of its power. You begin to see that the pressure was never proof of your failure. It was proof that the threshold mattered. That changes how you move. You stop reacting to every sound. You start listening for the right one. And so the turning point comes when you stop negotiating with what has already been made clear. You know that moment. It happens while the water is running over your hands, or while you are sitting in the parked car, or while a sentence someone said keeps echoing long after they left the room. You stop trying to squeeze a different meaning out of something that has already spoken. You stop asking for signs, because the sign is now standing in front of you. That is where the inner posture shifts, not into harshness, but into steadiness, not into panic, but into readiness. The closed door no longer feels like a verdict, it feels like instruction. And the longer you stay honest with it, the more you realize that the answer was never going to come through forcing. It was coming through permission. There is a difference, and that difference is about to become visible in one sustained image that has been waiting under the surface. Think of a room with one window and one table, where a sealed letter has been lying in the quiet for longer than anyone expected. The paper is real, the envelope is real, and the room has learned how to sit beside it without opening it. That is what this season has felt like. Not empty, held, not abandoned, kept. You may have mistaken the stillness for nothing happening, but the stillness was only the cover over an event that needed time to become readable. In the soft light of evening, with the edge of the envelope catching what little brightness the lamp gives it, you can feel how the sealed thing has been speaking without sound. The table has not failed. The window has not lied. The seal has only protected what was not ready to be rushed. And that protection is not a punishment. It is a kind of careful love. Some things cannot be read while the room is noisy. Some things need the silence to do what noise cannot. This is the metaphor now. The sealed letter, not as mystery for its own sake, but as the form your life has taken while God has been teaching you to wait without forcing the page. The sealed letter has a history, and its history matters. It was not sealed because it was empty. It was sealed because its contents were meant to arrive intact without being handled by every restless hand. You can feel the old formation behind it, the times when you learned to hide your real thoughts because speaking them too early would have cost you peace. The moments when you folded parts of yourself away just to keep the room calm. The envelope in front of you is also the memory of the envelopes you became. You learned to cover what was tender. You learned to wait before speaking. You learned that some truths need protection before they need publicity. That learning was not wasted. It became a form of preservation. Yet what was once protection can become limitation if it never opens. That is why the letter has become part of your story now. It carries both the wisdom of being guarded and the ache of being unread. The old formation gave you safety. The new moment asks for trust. And the tension between those two is not an accident. It is the place where maturity begins to breathe. The opposition around the sealed letter is subtle. It is the temptation to mistake the seal for a dead end. It is the voice that says, if it has not opened by now, maybe it never will. It is the impulse to put the envelope into a drawer and call that peace. But drawers are not the same as deliverance. The sealed thing remains in the room, and its presence keeps asking to be honored. Some days you look at it and feel a little tired just from remembering it is there. Some days you turn your face away because you do not want the cost of opening what has waited so long. Yet the seal itself has been preserving the meaning that your rush would have damaged. This is where many people miss the grace. They only want revelation after the opening. They forget that concealment can be merciful when it keeps something from being flattened before its time. So the struggle is not against the sealed letter. The struggle is against the part of you that wants the content without surrendering the pace. Then the movement begins. You notice the envelope first, how it seems less like a wall and more like a threshold. The table is still the same table, but now it feels like a place of readiness. Your hand hovers near the paper, and the body responds before the mind has finished catching up. The fingers grow still, the breath lowers, the room seems to lean in. What was sealed does not shout. It waits for recognition. That is how return often arrives, not with noise, but with permission to touch what was already yours to receive. A seal can look like an ending until the moment you understand it was never meant to bury the message. It was meant to carry it safely to you. And when that understanding lands, the letter is no longer only a mystery. It becomes a witness that silence has been working on your behalf. The room has not been empty at all. It has been preparing you to read with steadier hands. If the image of the sealed letter landed in you, if something inside you recognized your own story in that envelope and that table and that waiting light, type the words "I see it" in the comments. Let the recognition be written where you can return to it. It is a simple phrase, but it carries the moment into your own record. Type "I see it," then come back to me. Do not rush past what has been clarified. Stay with the image long enough for it to become instruction. There is a reason the seal has been keeping its place, and there is a reason you are being asked to notice it now. The next step is not to force the opening. It is to become the kind of listener who can receive what opens without fear. What comes after recognition is not performance. It is return. You stop trying to earn the right to hear, and you begin to live as someone who has already been addressed. That changes the way morning feels when your feet touch the floor and the room is still quiet. It changes the way your hand reaches for the phone, because not every first movement of the day needs to belong to the noise outside you. The sealed letter is no longer merely outside your story. It has become the way your own life asks to be handled, with patience, with reverence, with less force. In the small silence before the day starts, you can feel what is being restored. Not just clarity, but order. Not just feeling, but steadiness. The heart begins to trust that it does not have to open everything at once. Some things are meant to be received in sequence. That sequence is mercy. And mercy is often disguised as slowness until you need the slowness to keep from breaking what matters. The first practice is simple. and it begins at the threshold of your day. Before you answer the first message, before you explain yourself to anyone, set 1 minute of silence beside the bed or at the kitchen table and let the room stay unfilled. Notice the breath. Notice the shoulders. Notice whether your chest is already tense from carrying conversations that have not happened yet. Then name, in one sentence, what the sealed letter is teaching you to guard. The purpose is not ritual for its own sake. The purpose is to make room for what is being returned. When you do this, the day starts less like a chase and more like a receiving. That small pause becomes a fence around your attention. It reminds you that not every voice deserves your first agreement. The body knows the difference before the mind does. And when the body is given a threshold instead of a rush, it begins to settle into truth. The second practice is just as practical, and it happens when the day starts pulling you in too many directions. Put the phone down long enough to ask what is actually asking for you and what is only demanding you. That question will reveal a lot. Some messages are urgent only because they are loud. Some tasks feel important because they keep you from the deeper thing. In the stillness of the afternoon, with light shifting across the wall, notice what drains you and what expands your peace. Then choose accordingly. Not every invitation deserves an immediate yes. Not every silence deserves an answer. The sealed letter teaches discernment here too, because it reminds you that timing is part of truth. When you respond more slowly, you begin to see more clearly. The old pattern wants instant reaction. The new pattern knows how to wait without losing itself. That is not passivity, it is stewardship. And stewardship is how peace survives a noisy life. Protection often arrives looking like a limit. You wanted an open hallway, but what you received was a door that did not move yet. You wanted the answer now, but what came instead was a pause that forced you to listen. You wanted the message to be obvious, but what you got was a seal. That seal has not been mocking you. It has been guarding the shape of what cannot be rushed. In the room where you keep returning to the same question, the limit itself may be the mercy. The closed option may be the one that saves you from draining yourself on what was never meant to carry your future. There is comfort in that once you stop fighting it. A delayed answer is not always a denial. Sometimes it is a protection wrapped in restraint. And when you accept that, your spirit can breathe again. You do not have to call every boundary a loss. Some boundaries are how love keeps its hand steady. The real decision now is not whether you feel ready, it is whether you will honor what has been made clear. The sealed letter asks for stewardship, not striving. It asks you to stop narrating yourself as someone waiting for permission to become whole. You are already in the room where the truth has been placed. Your task is to handle it quietly. That can look like turning down a conversation that keeps pulling you back into an older self. It can look like leaving the message unanswered until your spirit is less crowded. It can look like speaking less and listening more, not because you have nothing to say, but because what matters most does not need to be rushed into the air. This is the dignity of a private obedience. It does not need witnesses to be real. It needs steadiness, and steadiness will carry you farther than performance ever could. The envelope remains, but now it no longer controls the room. You do. Let your like be your amen without words. If something in this message confirmed what you already knew in the quiet, let that gesture stand as agreement, not as a metric, as a sealed yes. The point is not to be seen. The point is to acknowledge what has been named truthfully. That quiet agreement matters because it teaches your heart to respond without noise. It says that what landed here was not random. It was recognized, and recognition has weight. It changes the way the rest of the day sits on you. It turns the listening into consent. It turns the consent into peace. You do not need to explain the agreement to anyone else. The seal is between you and the moment, and that is enough to move with. From here, The message shifts toward care because what has been opened inside you is not meant to stay private forever. Attention, you need to prepare now. I put together an exclusive resource for those who feel set apart for something greater, but live surrounded by noise, distractions, and mental overload. This is a 30-day journey that will transform your life. A guided path to armor your mind and prepare for what's coming with daily practices of focus, boundaries, and discipline. Stop negotiating with the noise. Learn to spot distractions before they control you, and strengthen your mind. Also available in an immersive audio version. Over 10 Zuzazara readers have already transformed their lives through the 30-day journey. Thousands of people have already started this transformation. People like you who are tired of living in the fog. Ordinary people who decided to stop accepting mental chaos. Take advantage of this limited time offer only this month. Access your link just below in the pinned comment.